We are looking for sponsors for the Kids Media Club podcast. So if your product or IP would like to join the conversation and talk right into the ears of stakeholders of the industry, drop us a line. You can get in touch via our website, thekidsmediaclubpodcast.com, or drop myself, Andy, or Joe a line on LinkedIn or via email.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I am Andy Williams.
Hello, I'm Joe Redfern. Welcome back, Emily, after your half-term jollies.
Yeah, it's good to be a trio again, everybody. Nice to be here for a good hosts chat.
Absolutely.
Shall we maybe mention sponsorship, seeing as you did that amazing intro? Let's just hammer that home. We're looking for sponsors.
Definitely, everyone. We're looking for sponsors of the Kids Media Club podcast. If your product or company or IP wants to get in on the conversation, definitely drop any of us a line.
And Charmander also agrees. Charmander still also thinks that you should sponsor the Kids Media Club podcast. How Emily, look,
you're not going to have a teddy or Joe. You're going to win.
Yeah, I've got my teddy.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Have you got Derpy there?
Oh yeah, I've always got Derpy, man.
Oh, look at that.
Cool. Well, listen, a tough week this week, and we've loads to chat about in this session. But you know, the news out of Paramount is quite grim. Layoffs coming in the thousands, and lots of senior Kids Media Club folks, Kids Media folks left out. Not subject to any sort of shields or immunity. It's a really difficult time, and I feel so. It's been so long, you guys. Like I was made redundant by Disney probably nearly 7 years ago, right? And I was like the second round of redundancies at Disney. So you're talking that we've been going through this in our industry for the guts of a decade, basically.
Yeah,
and this is a thing. It's just so difficult. So I was musing a little bit this week. I put a poll up on my LinkedIn to see if people wanted me to write my newsletter at the Kids Streamer Sphere on Friday about layoff tips, or if they wanted me to write about Paramount from a kids media take. And the overwhelming feedback is to stay in my lane and write about Paramount from the kids media take. But I did think it was worth just chatting about layoffs and how to kind of survive layoffs a little bit here, because obviously we've all been through career inventions and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I don't think you can talk about what's happening at Paramount and are they going to buy Warner Brothers without discussing the layoffs. The two aren't mutually exclusive. So, yeah. And as you said, I mean, we are here. That's one of the reasons that we show up every week to do this thing, is to talk about what's happening in the industry and not be afraid to grasp the odd nettle or two. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And we are here. And we do want to hear from you, as always. Reach out and let us know what's happening with you and how you're feeling. There is a lot of people talking about their own experiences on LinkedIn in particular, which is, can be both a help and sometimes make you feel even worse. But interestingly, before we just came on air, Andy and Emily and I were talking about a previous guest of ours, Emily Brundige, and actually there's something that she's doing that I think might offer a glimmer of hope. So yes, she's got a new series that she's creating. She is a creator now, and has published the first episode of her new IP, Strawberry Vampire, on YouTube. Andy, tell me, you were just checking out how many views it's got.
So she published 3 days ago, and it's got 71,000 views so far. And
well done, Emily.
Yeah, amazing. And Emily's a fantastic example of somebody that really self-advocates, and she's building in public, and she's bringing everyone along for the ride. And I think it's a very good example of how you can be a creator and use somewhere like YouTube to really build in public and build your community and your fan base. And she's good at talking like a fan herself. I saw that she did a recent post where for Halloween she's gone dressed as her own character, and that's a kind of really good example of talking the language of fans and being kind of part of that community. So I think there's loads of lessons that a lot of creators can pick up from how she's really betting on herself and being open and transparent and bringing people along for the ride, and just building in public, and also building that momentum behind your show. So it's very inspiring. I think it's great that she's doing that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode she was on. I think I missed that one too. I had the pleasure of just listening on to that one. But the other thing that she's done, and how like we all came to meet her, was she's building her network, right? And that's something I'd say to people. Yeah. I know the LinkedIn ick. Obviously, all of us have gotten over it, I would say, quite obviously, for a number of years. But there was that moment at the start. It is daunting to post there. Sure. I think one of the first or second posts I posted was like, it's because I was job searching on LinkedIn and they served me a gynecologist job, and I was like, so, kids franchises bringing them to life, kind of maybe not, but like, so I was just trying to find, like, I just was so amused by LinkedIn's algorithm, and that's what I thought, like, that's a me joke to make, so I'm gonna make that joke. But it's not like, and it's not just about like a posting, it's about just kind of bringing curiosity to conversations. And I would say that to anybody, even if you're in the lucky position of having a job in the media industry right now, like, somebody said this to me, it resonated deeply, obviously, but your network is like your pension. If you only invest in it when you need it, it's not going to be worth much.
Yep.
It's great.
It's like just bringing curiosity to what people are talking about, what people are doing, to the conversation, bringing kindness, obviously, bringing just interest and points of view, and like, just good kind of collegial sort of conversation is really valuable. And that's how Emily reached out, I think, to you, Andy. I think she reached out to me. There was a bit of pinging back and forth. That's interesting. Oh, I like what you said there, and that kind of thing. And that's how the conversation with her kind of came through, and that's how we all know her now. And so absolutely. And she is great. She advocates for that. Obviously, she wrote her book, which is great. But she speaks about, just showing up and chatting to people, and it is tiring, and definitely I get it. And I actually probably have the conversation with people at least once a month who are subject to layoffs about, listen, you need to get on LinkedIn. I know there's the ick, find a way to make it feel, I'm not going to say authentic because it's the least authentic thing to say, but like, find a way to make it feel like it's okay with you. And
absolutely.
Where your comfort level is. That's what I always say. What do you like talking about? Is it data? Is it industry trends?
Yes.
What creativity is to you? Yes, that's yours. Is it being provocative? Just find what is interesting to you. Importantly, it has to be something about which you're going to be happy to write and post for a long time. So
one other thing on the discussion about Emily is that I think she combines two qualities that I think are really powerful. One is that she has the confidence to just get stuck in and put herself out there, but she also is humble enough about trying new stuff and not letting the ego get in the way of that. And I think, I think when she started on YouTube doing animations on YouTube, which then caught the eye of networks, and had a series with Apple recently, but is kind of has the humility still to be able to then go back to doing the YouTube and building her new IP on YouTube. So she's got a lot of great qualities that I think are kind of essential for new creators now.
This idea of building in the open is something that the team at Arcade Media, who look after the Sidemen, Jordan Schwarzenberger, Joe Lamb, they advocate building in the open. But it's interesting because in kids media, that's the very antithesis of how we've been used to creating, right? We make kids content, and we hone it and we shape it and we polish it and we make sure it's absolutely perfect before anybody sees it.
Totally.
And so that to people finding themselves maybe subject to layoffs is something that might make you feel quite uncomfortable. And as Emily said, we've kind of, we've got over the LinkedIn ick. It's the same kind of ick mountain that you've got to climb and get over. Is think about what you can offer and what you can share and what you want to create. And I think the goodwill is there. I think people often don't think that the goodwill is there, that they're going to get criticized. But the very fact that we're talking about how brilliant it is that Emily Brundige has created her new show and she's putting it out on YouTube shows that the goodwill is there.
But also, if the goodwill isn't there, you don't want it, right? Like if you reach out and you're not and you're not met with kindness. If you're not met at all, it might be that somebody's so busy, or somebody's not on LinkedIn, somebody's whatever, right? But if you're met with anything other than like kindness and humility, then like you don't want it, man. Like just walk away, it's fine, and you got your answer.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's still that shadow of that kind of playground experience that we think we're going to be kind of judged a bit like you might have been judged at school. Yeah, part of it is most people are too busy to be judging you anyway. And as you said, the ones that are, it speaks more about them than it does about you anyway, on the whole.
Yeah.
It does. Well, we just want to say that the Kids Media Club podcast is here. We're sending out hugs aplenty, and we're more than happy to listen to people and what they're going through. And okay, so Andy, you've been thinking about stage productions.
Oh yeah,
and I thought you were making some really interesting points about that. And I confess it's an area about which I know very little. So I want to hear about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so Paddington is coming out as a musical. Tom Fletcher from, is it Busted or McFly? He's doing the music
McFly, I think.
Yeah, he's doing the music for the show, and it's a great example of how stage productions now are becoming more and more an essential part of an IP's flywheel, really. And it's also an example of how I think the West End is becoming a testing ground for stage shows now that Broadway is seen as being, I think, more sort of prohibitively expensive for a lot of new shows. So you're getting a lot of big American productions that are seeing the West End as more of a testing ground for that. There's, I think, a big American theatre producer is now building a new theatre in Earls Court, and it's the first time an American money has built a theatre in the UK, I think, for about 100 years.
Wow!
So there's a shift that the West End is seen as a proving ground, really, for new shows and new talent. And you've got Paddington the musical that's out there as an example of an IP having a stage production as part of their flywheel. And you've also got Stranger Things, and then Hunger Games is the latest one. There's had a mixed reception, but it's interesting and notable because they're actually building their own theatre space just slightly outside of the West End. And so I think we're starting to get into an area where there's more and more of those big IPs that are seeing stage productions as part of that IP's universe. And I think it's maybe a lot of other stuff, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's stage productions, but it's also like those type of like experience installations. So there's the Paddington Experience in South Bank, the Shrek Experience, the Minecraft Experience over in the Docklands as well. Like that kind of in-person experiential opportunity seems to be really rife in London. And listen, I love Paddington. We've spoken about Paddington on the podcast before. I think it's a masterclass in IP revival in a fresh way. Obviously the shout out to the Paddington 2 movie, which I was saying to parents at the weekend is considered the most perfect movie ever made over Citizen Kane, according to
Rotten Tomatoes. It's a great movie. I'm not sure if I'll go that far, but
it is the most perfect movie ever made. It's Citizen Kane. But it's I think a London stage musical is a no-brainer, right? Like, and they've built like Paddington, they've got the Paddington store in Paddington Station. Like, there's lots of different touch points for that IP, that make a lot of sense, I would say.
Yeah.
And do you think that we'll see more theatres being purpose-built, Andy, outside of the traditional heartland?
I think that's a good.
And again, I'm kind of calling back to what we discussed on the last podcast about the Sphere in Vegas as well, with the Wizard of Oz, and how they dropped apples from the ceiling, and that kind of experience.
I think there's a very good chance of that. I think partly a lot of the historical theatres are very much built for their time. So with new theatres, they can have all of the comfort that people come to expect, I think. And also that it sometimes, and I think this is the case in Broadway, and it's probably the case in the West End, I think there are just a select number of owners of theatres. So creating a new space means you slightly step outside of being beholden to those legacy gatekeepers. So yeah, I think there's a good chance of that.
There's so many IP that I think could really work in that immersive theatre / cinema space. That, given that there's a trend back towards in-person experiences, then I can see this being an even bigger part of that franchise plan going forward.
I was looking at yet another report this morning that said that again. I was like, oh no, this is a different report that's saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw something. This is a bit of a tangent, but I read that AMC, that's the cinema chain, isn't it, in the States? I think. Yeah, okay. That they're looking at acquiring the rights to a lot of college sports and more local events to really make the cinema as a space to bring people together and celebrate that. So I think there's going to be some interesting expressions of that need to get people together and share a kind of a group experience, whether it be at the theatre or the cinema. That maybe the reaction to that is that people gravitate to more in-person events.
Well, listen, like last weekend there was a second coming of K-pop Demon Hunters in cinemas, right, for Halloween. So like I think that in-person thing when it comes to that IP, and I know it's like the new Bluey on this show. Like, have we gone how many episodes of K-pop Demon Hunters? I bingoed it this time, you guys. But it's that in-person experience, that fandom thing. I've heard at Comic-Con and stuff. Like, you know, that dress-up factor for that IP has been huge.
Yeah, and back to the sports thing. I think what's interesting, and who was it that was on from Think Jam? They were talking about how cinemas are using their spaces in different ways. Was it Think Jam?
No, it was. I think it was Becky Evans of Generation Media who they were doing the Maya and the Bee thing, weren't they?
Yes. Then when you look at college sports, but also I believe things like the esports World Cup, they're being streamed into cinemas as well. So again, it's that fandom thing, whether you're a fan of esports, whether you're a fan of K-pop Demon Hunters, the Minecraft movie. Actually, I think maybe we've forgotten that cinema and theatres are a place where you are actually surrounded by fandom. You're surrounded by the screen, by the sound, and by other people who want to be there. And, you know, it still remains one of the joys of my year was sitting in the Minecraft screening and just hearing everybody shout out Chicken Jockey and cheering, at certain points in the movie. The very essence of fandom, which I think would perhaps maybe lost sight of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, the Minecraft movie is also a good example of, I think they got it right in terms of they served the fans what they wanted, but they also made a movie that worked as a movie. And I think, going back to the theatre stuff, I think the challenge for some of those IPs is going to be not just doing what people would often do about game spin-offs, where they would think that they would just be able to just do any kind of game spin-off and that would be enough. You've got to create a theatrical experience that really works as a theatrical experience rather than just being a spin-off that hasn't had that thought that's gone into it. So it's going to be interesting to see how well some people do at delivering that.
The big tick with Minecraft movie was that the movie was clearly also made by a fan.
Exactly.
The director was a fan and had played and who knew the lore and who knew what fans really cared about and wasn't afraid to indulge that and maybe cast aside some of the existing rules of how you translate video games into cinema and actually was in service of the fan service content as well.
Yeah, and an interesting creative to have at the helm of that as well. And he's a genuinely interesting director in his own right. I mean, I always thought the Julia adaptation of The Lion King is one of those ones where she created something that felt like it was really a musical theatrical experience that wasn't just a Xerox of the movie. And I think for anyone looking to do those kind of live experience versions of existing IP, that's kind of really what they need to find. Anyway.
Yeah. I know you were musing on the longevity of fandom, not to clichély bring it back to K-pop TV show, but
well, do you know, I was, and you preempted me because that's what I was just thinking about. Because we're going to talk about SpongeBob, which is also, we're talking about cycles of fandom, which that one, in that case, endures over 20 years. K-pop Demon Hunters, bringing it back. I'm tracking the fan-made experiences on Roblox as I have been for the best part of 3-4 months now since it started popping, and we've discussed it several times here. 151 fan-made K-pop Demon Hunters experiences on Roblox as of last count yesterday, which shows just how significant it has become. Now, of course, a lot of the concurrent users and the number of daily visits into those experiences has plateaued. That's inevitable. What it started me thinking, and was the reason that I threw it out to you two on our little Kids Media Club podcast WhatsApp group, was, of course, great excitement around the announcement of dual master toy licenses going to Mattel and Hasbro. But as we know very well, toy development cycles are long, and although they're contracting, the majority of the product launch is not due till spring 2026. And if we're already seeing that fandom wane a little bit on Roblox, and I'm only using Roblox as my standard here, but it's a pretty temperature check. I did wonder that those fandom cycles are contracting so much that still the toy side of things will struggle to really capitalize on that fandom if we've got to wait until spring 2026.
I guess my question is the target audience for the toy quite the same as the target audience on Roblox? Because the target audience for the toy is probably more like 7, 11. I'm not saying we know Roblox is going younger, and it is open to younger kids. I mean, having been through the Frozen situation, and obviously that's over a decade ago now, but you know, I think IP like this, that everyone is calling K-pop Demon Hunters Netflix's Frozen moment, and myself included, like, it skews a bit older than Frozen, but when we're talking dolls and costumes and those types of activations, it tends to be that the content will age down, right? And so Frozen will start with, you know, Idina Menzel singing Let It Go on Good Morning America or whatever, and then it will age down to like random 3-year-olds singing it on YouTube. And when it ages down, you know, that younger cohort have a much more avid longevity to the fandom, you know, and some are flipping in, right? Like there's a conveyor belt there. So although, I mean, listen, no one would say that Mattel shouldn't have had dolls ready to go this Christmas, and that's a missed opportunity, as it was a missed opportunity for Frozen. I still think the fandom will be there in a year. And the thing that I have been consistently asking about this IP is, where's the content plan, right?
That will be the driver, I think, because I concur with everything that you're saying. I think the content will be the thing that maybe breathes new life into a proportion of those 151 fan-made experiences in Roblox, and that can be really powerful. Yeah, just momentarily back to how those fandom cycles, particularly on Roblox, are contracting, but it will bleed outside of Roblox. You had Grow a Garden that enjoyed 3 months at the top of its game. Getting 24 million concurrent users into the game at one time. I mean, that was proper kind of fan culture moment. Even now, that's been replaced by Steal a Brain Rot. And now Steal a Brain Rot is declining because we've got Plants vs. Brain Rot. So those cycles, now they're very hype and trend-driven games. It's not apples to apples, I can see. But it's interesting how that's kind of fandom behavior that will be learned. And that might put a little bit of pressure on K-pop Demon Hunters. But to your point, it will be grown-ups and it will be grandmas that are buying those toys in spring. So I think that they're a little bit more more
Joe, do you
I
think?
would
Sorry, go Emily.
no, you go. No.
Okay. I was just curious about the Roblox point. Do you think in some ways it's subject to the vagaries of the Roblox algorithm, and that is that is more about that than it is actually a measure of whether the IP itself has that staying power? It just might be that it's just swept up in the algorithm.
It is, Andy. Yeah, it is. And it is one of my biggest frustrations about Roblox, given that I do love the platform. But it's the similar criticisms that we level at YouTube, that algorithmically tends to favor a certain type of trend-driven content, which means those who are trying to build sustained fandom really have to stick at it for a heck of a long time in order to start seeing those dividends. So you've got two ends of the spectrum. I do wholeheartedly believe that Roblox is a great place to build loyalty and fandom. And if it's not in individual games, you've got developers like Jansen, who is the creator of a lot of those really massive trend-driven games. He can create game after game after game, and that audience will follow him. Actually, he is kind of like the Mr. Beast of Roblox.
Right, so it's created his own brand.
Yes. So there is loyalty, and there is community, and there is fandom that can be built there on a sustained basis. But yes, that algorithmic trap is something that Roblox is not immune from, much like YouTube.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is, again, we come back to YouTube and Roblox being that really nifty dual flywheel. So that back to Emily's point about what's the content plan, not just the movie, not just other content for Netflix. I would love to see how it's being leveraged across social video as well.
But I think, and this is what I was yearning to say a few minutes ago, was it comes down to depth, right? Like IP depth. And a multi-platform content plan can't be sustained on a shallow IP.
Exactly.
You know, and the longevity of something. And I think we see this a little bit when it comes to nursery rhyme IP, right? Like it's hard to mine that depth that will see you through a 5, 10 year, 15-year franchise cycle.
I'd say almost impossible, not just hard.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, so on some of these, and like I know, like, on Skibbity Toilet, for example, right? Like there's a whole load of, I'm told anyway, there's a whole load of lore.
There is,
you know, that is actually propping up that IP rather than Italian brain rot, which is very surface level. Obviously, we talked about that a few weeks ago. Not owned, not you know, crowdsourced IP. Great, funny for what it is, interesting phenomenon, absolutely. But it's that depth, I think. And when we talk about K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Like, you know, the music, the film remains wonderful. You know, there's so much more there, and they're going to be building out more of that world, more of the music. EJ is, you know, releasing an album as well directly, I think, and stuff. So like, there's lots more to come on that, and there's so much more to explore. So that's something that would give me confidence over, you know, the Grove Gardens and that kind of thing. But I find it fascinating that there's, like, I hadn't quite realized that they were so flash in the pan that, you know, it was like, you know, 3-6 months and like you're kind of, everyone's moved on to the next thing. That feels like viral videos on YouTube back in the day. Like we were all doing Gangnam Style, and we were all doing the Harlem Shake, right? Like that type of thing.
And it's not dissimilar. It's really not dissimilar. What's interesting is there's two things at play. One is that almost training young consumers to contract their fandom, if you like. Will they become more fickle? I do subscribe to, actually, at the end of the day, we love depth. We do, as viewers, and our young audiences love to swim around in content. They love to go deep into certain things. They love wearing knowledge and fandom like a badge. So I am heartened by that. But the other thing is that, when it comes to the creators on Roblox who have nailed this new way of virality and immersive spaces, I kind of want to know how we can borrow a bit of that where relevant in what we do, because it feels like that's how we kind of evolve storytelling for these new generations. I don't think we're there yet. But to your point, Emily, do you know anything of the content plan for K-pop Demon Hunters between now and spring when the toy launches? Do we have any clues?
Netflix will tell me anything. I did hear a rumor that there was like a showcase at BLE and the world was promised. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything much more than that. I mean, they have to be working out things. There's been skirmishes of news around shorts at one stage that proved not to be accurate. The directors are game for it. There's going to be a plan. And honestly, the one thing I'll say is it's been so impressive to see Netflix mobilize around that IP the way they have, because they're not Disney. They don't have, consumer product teams, retail marketing teams, publishing teams, right? Like they don't have that infrastructure, that franchise infrastructure that they can redeploy onto something that's emergent. And they've had to, I guess, cobble as they go, build a ship as they're flying. And they've done a really good job on it so far. I think a lot of the stuff, I remember I wrote an article early on about like what their next steps should be. And I think they've probably done, maybe 50% of those so far, if not more,
They need to go back and read it again.
Maybe I need to go rewrite it again. I actually have that in a plan for a little bit later in the year. But, they've done a lot of that. They've done a lot of that so far. So things that they've done, some of the things that I would have expected them to do. So they did like the whole press tour thing and getting, going on Jimmy Kimmel. Like that's Netflix's bread and butter, is doing the press, the high-end press stuff. But they've done stuff that isn't native to Netflix, like getting the film in cinemas twice, like getting consumer products deal, like at least some consumer product deals done and activated pre-Christmas. Getting like that Hasbro Mattel deal is so unusual. Is no one I know who works in licensing can ever think of that ever happening before. Yeah. And yet Netflix managed to make it happen, so it's super impressive. Like hats off to them. Because they're not swimming in their comfort zone, I would say, and they're doing a really great job of it. So the content plan has to be coming, because that is the one thing that they do understand to a certain extent. Content commissioning, and they have the money to.
But going back to the content plan, I think the challenge sometimes for Netflix and for lots of other studios is that it can take quite a long time from a show becoming a success for them to then follow up on that success with more content. I mean, you just look at, a massive show like Stranger Things, in terms of the gap in between seasons ends up being fairly large. You get something like Squid Games, where obviously Mr. Beast can turn around and do his own version of Squid Games off of the back of the success of the first show, but it would take Netflix way longer to be able to respond and to create something. So that's the challenge, isn't it? K-pop. It
is, because I do think there's also the pressure to get it precisely right. With
isn't it? That's what we're conditioned to do.
Yeah, it goes back to the example of Emily. It's like we're not, we don't want to build in public. We want to, there's going to be a lot of internal discussions over every minute aspect of it before we're ready to present it to the public. But it makes responding to that success a challenge.
Yeah, there's a tension there. I think there's a bit more disposability when you're building in public. That's what people expect. You can crumple it up and move on. But if they crumple up and move on with K-pop Demon Hunter, is like, they need to get it right. That second installment, the worst thing would be to do something that was subpar, and they would waste the biggest opportunity they've had in terms of a global franchise, and ever. So the pressure is there, but anyway, let's see what they can do. I mean, the directors are the heart sphere of the directors feels very much in the right place. It feels like the directors have loads more, having met them in person. It feels like they have loads more that they want to talk about, right? Like there's so much there, so much depth, and so and you can feel it in the world anyway, right? Like it doesn't feel like a one and done story, there's so much depth there. So anyway, let's pray. Let's put the infant out for Netflix.
And before we sign off for this week, talk to us. So K-pop Demon Hunters, right at the very start of what we hope is a a long-term franchise journey. Let's talk about one that's pretty far in. SpongeBob, over 20.
Yeah, in the light of the Paramount news, like it's something I've been looking at over the past few months. It's kind of been percolating in my brain about like the kids profile, like the kids profile of Paramount, right? Like what kids IP do they have? One of the main ones being Nickelodeon. And I've been tracking all year, actually. I haven't really spoken about it a lot because it's been such an edgy, you'll see it in the chart when I publish it on Friday. The success of SpongeBob this year. So SpongeBob is on Paramount Plus in the US, and it started popping in on the Nielsen top 10s start of this year. And then it started bleeping in with consistency. And actually, for the past 4 weeks, it has overtaken Bluey as the top kid show and as a just generally overall big show on Nielsen US streaming. And that's on Paramount Plus, you see, which is less penetrated than Disney Plus. So the amount of watch time is even more potent kind of per subscriber. So just listen, it's the restructure of Paramount, the layoffs are horrendous. I was offering this up as a bit of hope of like the IP that are at Nickelodeon are still very valuable. SpongeBob won. Netflix just greenlit a Victorious spin-off, which would be interesting to see where that lands. A lot of the preschool IP, which aren't necessarily Nickelodeon owned, but they would have been Nickelodeon marketed on platforms like Peppa. Paw Patrol recently just went over to Netflix, so onto bigger penetrated platforms, and they continue to do really well. Like there is lots of really strong IP at Nickelodeon, and I think I find it at least hopeful that the signals on that are popping at a time when, a chainsaw could be taken to Nickelodeon like it was kind of done to Cartoon Network. And so that's what I'm writing up for the newsletter on Friday. I feel like, there's lots of very valuable kids IP that lots of people invested time into building that continue to have major relevance for audiences today. And, please note that this is something that is a jewel in the crown of what's there. And needs guarding, which that would be kind of my takeaway on it.
Interesting that Paramount have, from what you've just said and from what we've seen, particularly with SpongeBob, that has 8 different official experiences on Roblox. They are looking at how they can take their IP into different places in a much more pragmatic way than perhaps other IP owners. But to your point, what it really throws into relief for me, and I'm just thinking about this as you're talking about it, is how Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. have been IP incubation powerhouses. Yeah. And like you said, to take a chainsaw to that would be crazy. And we know that they did Kid Cowboy earlier this year. We spoke to Mark Cantone about it in terms of their first YouTube first and distributed commission. They've got SpongeBob in 8 different experiences on Roblox. That Paw Patrol on Netflix, Victorious coming back. To think that Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. that have had a hand in so many iconic kids IP that are enduring might cease to exist that would be a shame. It can't happen.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So as I said, they can't. But I think it's helpful that these IP are blipping.
Yes, exactly.
That's this moment showing the dorsal fin of their engagement from a data perspective, and I think that's helpful. Right, it's helpful in this moment that you're not just sitting there going, "Oh, of course, everyone loves, this because we all talk about it," but it's actually the proof is in the data that this stuff is valuable.
I'm just going to say, because I'm just looking at some of the data on a SpongeBob game, and then I'll be quite
the SpongeBob Roblox spiral there, Joe. Have I?
So no, I was just looking at SpongeBob Tower Defense, and Tower Defense games, very popular genre of game on Roblox. So again, they've done their homework and they've created a version of SpongeBob on Roblox that plays into what feels native there, which is again another big tick strategically for them. But they're making good stuff as well. It's number 7 top rated game in 2025 out of all the millions of games that are on Roblox. So again, they're showing up natively, but they're making something good and they keep showing up there. So that's a big tip. Sorry, Andy, I interrupted. You go.
No, I was just reflecting that, as fantastic as the stuff that Netflix produces, they still haven't produced something that could, within that children's animation universe, that could rival SpongeBob. And it's a reminder of how a lot of those legacy studios are sitting on top of some incredibly powerful, vital kids brands that are still getting lots of audiences. We just need to find a way to save all of the Cartoon Network shows and revive those again as well.
We'll see. Paramount by Warner.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to bring them all under one house. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because there's some fantastic animation brands there.
100%. 100%.
Cartoon Networkodian.
Yeah,
like it.
On that note,
do you know, for something that was relatively loose when we decided we were going to come on and have a chat, we've managed to fill 40 odd minutes.
We have.
As we all want to do. So why don't you do the wrap up, Andy?
Yes. So I hope you've all enjoyed that chinwag with the three of us. Please like and subscribe wherever you find us on whatever platforms you listen to us. And also, again, just a reminder that we'd love to chat to you if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast. And that's it from us. We will see you next week.